The United Nations has given to the rise of violence against women over the past year.
Violent murders and assaults against mothers. Recent crimes are highlighting the need for more conversations and action against domestic violence.
The focus on women and girls and what they should do.
In Mexico, women taking their anger to the streets.
Which they fear the most, domestic abuse.
It's a difference between literal life and death.
Domestic violence is a potentially fatal crime by a family member against a family member is a tragedy.
I'm a survivor.
Domestic violence includes behaviors such as control over the spouse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, isolation, and threatening behavior. It is not just the physical violence or the obvious injuries that are treated as domestic violence. This is a global issue. While moving along the video, we experienced that not many people were ready to give an interview, not because of being camera shy, but because of the topic that we chose.
Between 2001 and 2018, the majority of the domestic violence cases were filed under cruelty by husband or his relatives, with the reported rate of the crime increasing by 53% over 18 years. A total of more than 15 lakh cases were reported, and with 5,54,000 between 2014 and 2018.
So basically, there are 4 types of abuses for a domestic violence to come into play. Economical abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. So this is any abuse, any form of abuses that falls into these 4 categories amounts to a domestic violence.
Economic stability or instability define a person's position in the society. Other factors that define the person's position is his or her educational qualification. But every now and then, we witness a few examples who are not bound by these terms to serve greatness or maybe reach the peak of the downgrading act.
What do you think is the main contributor to being the abuser or being abused? The economical factor or the educational factor? Because we see these happening in in people of the upper section also, and we see more caring people or more down-to-earth people who maybe live on the streets or do not have economical conditions.
So, I think it's not necessarily to do with either actually, because it's behavioral. Like you yourself mentioned that one doesn't necessarily have to be rich or poor to be abusive, but the reality is also that the other way of looking at it is also that abuse is more seen among the desperate sections of society, right? But one can counterpoint by saying that, well, the reason why it's visible is because it is poor. The section is poor, so their abuse is visible to people at large, whereas the abuse that happens within the mansions and the rich houses is not easily seen to people, right? So, which is why I say that economy probably is not the only reason, or it can't be the main fundamental factor. On the other hand, I would say education, but not education in terms of literacy. Education in terms of what is supposed to be acceptable behavior. That is what I would call it.
In an article written by Barbara May, she quoted that poverty is a primary driver in the continuation of an assailant having a power and control over a survivor of domestic violence. In the changing social time, we see people mending the definition according to themselves. It usually covers many topics, usually debating how one thing is better than the other. Simply starting by what the feminism is, it has been evolving and subcategorizing into pseudo-feminism. It is something that is definitely not a nice thing for a man, nor for women.
Yes, a lot of times what happens is pseudo-feminism would play a negative role because we generally don't take men seriously. A lot of times, a woman is more likely to be taken seriously when there have been complaints of domestic violence or when there have been any kind of domestic abuse as well. So even if a man is complaining that I've been abused sexually or domestically, the chances are the next pertaining question would be that tumne kuch kiya hoga, you might have threatened, or it might be a way of self-defense, or it might be that you are pressurizing, controlling. So it often comes back to men because the patriarchy is so deep set, as well as which again leads to feminism, and it's a whole big cycle. So a lot of times pseudo-feminism is not harmful, but it often hinders progress or justice for male victims.
Domestic violence is based on many factors. We most commonly think from the physical perspective. Little do we understand how important the metaphysical or emotional perspectives are. Spirituality, having its roots in every aspect around us, no doubt can answer or seek what goes into the mental space of the abuser or the victim.
When you said domestic abuse, I presume it is spousal abuse, and that is like one niche of the entire abuse spectrum. In the words of one of the most senior sannyasis, Vishwesh Tirtha Swami, who passed away a few months ago, he made a very nice quip about understanding the domestic situation as far as very culture and heritage is concerned. He said it is very normal practice to name a house as Shanti Bhavan, Ram Bhavan, or Samriddhi Bhavan. So he says if you take the word Bhavan, it has Bha, Va and Bha, he said, stands for Bhagavan, or understanding spirituality at its core. So when Bhagavan is added to your married status, why are two people coming together? What is their, as they say, the raison d'etre? What is the reason why they are coming together? So today it seems like, oh, I loved her, she loved me, or that's all. This could be the point for which we could do a lot of investigation, that merely coming together and raising a family, or some people don't even bother raising a family, they're just interested in their own gratification of their bodies, that aeroplane is bound to crash.
Alcohol and domestic abuse are frequently paired. However, while alcohol is often involved in issues of intimate partner violence, it is never the sole reason behind it. But here's what people think about it when asked about.
मेरा कैसा है, मेरी लड़की, मेरे बच्चे तीनों छोटे छोटे थे जब से लेके आज तक का, मेरा पति दारू पीता है, ठीक है, जुआरी खेलता है, मतलब पत्ता खेलता है। वो आदमी जो कमाता है थोड़ा पैसा, तो उसमें कैसा होता है, अभी पूरा घर नहीं चलेगा। जो दारू में पत्ते में जाएगा तो फैमिली नहीं पाल पाएंगे। अभी पी के आया, जैसा उनको पैसा नहीं है तो गाली गुलोच करेगा, हम पैसा नहीं देगा तो फिर हमारे ऊपर गंदी इंजाम भी लगाते हैं। समझ रहे हैं आप लोग तो बात को, कैसा इंजाम भी लगा दे, तुम ऐसे हो तुम वैसे, तो भी हम उसका परवाह नहीं करता, क्योंकि हम सही है, ये हमें पता है। हम जिसको पूजा करते हैं उसको भी पता है कि हम सही हैं। अभी मेरा हस्बैंड का दोस्त लोग है साथ में पीने खाने वाले, किसकी नीयत कैसी होती है, क्या होती है, क्योंकि हमने कुछ बचपन से देख लिया है, तो हमारे बच्चे लोगों के साथ वो दिन नहीं आना चाहिए। तो इसके लिए लड़की को मैंने दूर रखी। तो आप अभी भी उनके साथ हो? ना, अभी भी साथ में हूँ, तो भी मतलब मैं हिम्मत क्यों हारूँ? चलता है गाड़ी, चलने दो, मगर हम हिम्मत नहीं हारना है। मैंने बहुत दुख उठाई हूँ, आदमी लोग जैसी जिंदगी जीऊँ, मतलब हूँ औरत, मगर जिगर एक आदमी के जैसे रखे जी।
One could never imagine experiencing such things. So, why do we remain silent?
सामने आती है कल रात की मार का दर्द, वो बेल्ट के निशान और मन पर लगे घाव। किसी की मुस्कान कम सी लगती है, ऐसी कहानियाँ कुछ जख्म सी चुभती हैं।